Faith over fear. 2 Timothy 1 verses 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1 verses 7. Fear is false evidence appearing real. As human beings, fear is a natural reaction to things and situations we are not used to, and a huge struggle for so many of us. When fear rises within us, it's tempting to let it take over, but God calls us to respond differently. Psalm 56 verses 3 reminds us of this. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Choosing to surrender by putting our trust in God doesn't eliminate the problem, but shifts our perspective, allowing God's strength to fill the spaces where fear might want to create a home to abide. Max Lucado once said, "Feed your fears and your faith will starve. Feed your faith and your fears will." Every day, we have to choose to focus on the power and promises of God, which strengthens our faith and makes fear lose its grip. When we take a look at the life of Moses, when God called him to confront Pharaoh and lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses was filled with self-doubt and fear. But God didn't expect Moses to act alone. He promised his presence and power. Through faith, Moses was able to go from being fearful to fearless, demonstrating that God equips those he calls. Oswald Chambers once said, "Fear is born of a lack of faith, which means that faith isn't just belief, but a choice to rely on God's strength over our own weaknesses." When we take a look at another Bible character, Esther, when she learned of Haman's plot to destroy her people, fear was a natural response, yet Esther acted in faith, trusting that God had placed her in her position for a purpose. Perhaps this is the moment for which you have been created. Her cousin Mordecai told her, Esther 4 verses 14. Reflecting on this, Corrie ten Boom once said, "Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God." Esther didn't know how things would turn out, but her faith allowed her to act courageously, reminding us that we don't have to have all the answers to trust in God's plan. Esther's courage also teaches us that faith allows us to move forward even when we don't know the outcome. From Adam and Eve hiding in the garden to the disciples fearful during the storm, fear often causes us to pull away from God. When we lean on God's strength, our fears become opportunities for our faith to arise. Our faith in God will be tested, but knowing that we are being refined for a greater purpose is what truly matters. Instead of succumbing to fear and allowing the enemy to have his way in our lives, we can let faith lead, knowing God is with us every step of the way. There are countless stories in the Bible that helps us conquer fear. Another example is Daniel. When faced with the fiery furnace, he chose faith over fear. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego told King Nebuchadnezzar, "If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us. But even if he does not, we want you to know, O king, that we will not serve your gods." Daniel 3, verses 17 through 18. Their faith in God wasn't just about trusting God for deliverance. It was about trusting God's goodness and sovereignty, regardless of the outcome. Charles Spurgeon once said, "Anxiety does not empty tomorrow of its sorrows, but only empties today of its strength." Today, whatever fears you face, whether they are related to the relationships in your life, health, or the unknown, remember God's promises. Choosing faith over fear doesn't mean we won't feel afraid. It means we let God's love and power define our actions rather than our fears. By turning to God's word, we can be reminded of his promises. He has equipped us with everything we need to face fear. His power, his love, shield of faith, and a mind grounded in peace. When we choose faith before fear, we invite God to work miracles in our lives. As we focus on his promises and faithfulness, our fears dim down and our faith arises as trust grows deeper. May we live each day rooted in God's word and this truth: there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. 1 John 4, verses 18, reminding us that in God's love, faith triumphs over fear.